Hi, thanks for purchasing a Little David LDX stainless steel taper from Expedex in Loveshaw. I wanted to take a few minutes to go through with you some of the features of that machine, some of the things that we can look for to make sure that it tapes a good box for you. Before we get into that, I'd like to go over the basically 101 of box taping so that we can identify some principles that will help you keep your machine running well and make sure that your machine's doing what it's supposed to do. All manufacturers of tape, boxes, and equipment will tell you that tape should be laid onto a box, not stretched onto a box. I frequently go into facilities and you find very well-meaning employees who are putting tape on as such. And they feel they've done a good job taping that box, when in fact they've stressed the tape preemptively and are setting it up for failure. I can do a small demonstration for you over here on the edge of this table. When tape is stretched and then breaks, the way it usually manifests itself is in tabbing. So if you see a box that's been taped, and you have a tab on this side of the box, which is very common to find out in the industry, you know that for some reason that tape is being stressed onto the box. The proper way to apply tape to a box is in a very relaxed fashion with no tension whatsoever. It's a lot like someone running the Boston Marathon and asking that person 10 minutes before they start to run two 500-meter dashes. He'll probably be able to, or she will probably be able to continue to run the race, but sometime prior to the end of that race, that extra stress that you put on them by making them run the dashes ahead of time is going to cause that to fail. Mostly, you'll find that the ends of the tape will pop up sometime in the future. It might be in the freezer, it's usually at the most inopportune time that the tape will fail. If you find a co-worker that's applying the tape incorrectly, very kindly and gently tell them that that's an inappropriate behavior. And if they persist, please do what's necessary to make them stop, because they're setting your boxes up for failure. These same principles of tape application, if you can keep those in mind when you're servicing and adjusting your taper, will allow you to preemptively take care of problems before they occur. This is a version of taper very similar to what you purchased, except this is in a painted version rather than a full stainless steel. Your machines are actually a little more hefty than this machine, because when they form it out of stainless steel, they have to make the components in a little different scale. Your tape head is what I would like to talk about before I go over the general features of the machine. The tape head is where all of the work is done in putting tape on a box. The rest of the machine is something that you folks are very attuned to working with. It's just mechanics and electric relays that you're very adept at troubleshooting. But what goes on in the tape head is sometimes a little more subtle. These are a lot different than your old LD7 stainless steel machines, and the initial reports from the boats are indicating that you're impressed with them and that they're a good improvement from what you've been used to having in the past. Let's take the tape out of this. And the first thing you notice that these are cutaway, so that allows you to easily thread the tape. Let's start with putting on the tape. These this clutch system that holds the tape onto the tape head has a little friction adjustment in it, a clutch, and it's a you can reach in there with your finger and just tighten up the spring. It does not do you any good to have it any tighter than keeping the tape from over rolling or spinning. So you don't want it to just spin like that because the tape could wrap up on itself. You want it to be held minimally with enough friction so that when the tape travels through the tape head as the box goes through, it doesn't overspin on itself and cause it to stick to the adhesive surface and wrap up and make a mess for you. You'll notice that the holder for holding the tape core onto the spindle is a new design. In the past, they've had little spring steel clasps and all different types of things that generally would wear out and become loose and wouldn't hold your tape on there. If you release that, slip the tape on, and then give it a few spins, it locks it securely onto that spindle for you. The adhesive part of the tape rolls over the knurled surfaces in the tape head. So this first roller is just a Delron spinner, Delron or HMW, and the next roller is a one-way textured roller with a little brake on it, but note that it spins freely. You can tension it just a little bit so that there's some friction on it. When you get your new tape heads, there'll probably be a little stiffness in there, and that's preloaded so that as it wears itself in, it'll get to the point that it spins. Adhesive onto the knurls. There's another smaller roller right in here. This is a very problematic roller, and in the past, if you've worked on any of the Loveshaw tape heads where this side was solid, you know what a pain that was to get that roller out. Everything that's been done to this tape head is now done with service and ease of use in mind. There's a small circlip on the end of that roller that can be taken off, and the roller will just slip out. As you've probably found, amazingly, these rollers will lock themselves up with adhesive from the tape. And I really can't believe or can't even explain to you how that adhesive gets into that little roller, other than to say that when the box goes through here, this little roller really spins, and that adhesive will spider web itself off to the sides of the rollers and will actually migrate inside the roller and will lock it up. If you've worked with these tape heads at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now it's easy to service. Keep these rollers spinning free. When they start to stiffen up, the stress on the tape, stretching the tape on the box, multiplies exponentially, and it just is setting yourself up for failure, very much like the customer or the employee who was well-meaningly stretching the tape onto the box. Same thing here. Loveshaw has thought about service in advance. There's a little pin here that's spring-loaded, stainless steel pin. If you press it in, it allows you to take off this roller for service. There's a tapered indenture right there that makes it so that you can just snap this, snap it right back on, and you're ready to go again. This is very cool compared to what we've had to live with in the past on all tape heads from all manufacturers. They all have had the same problems in the past. This feature is a cover for your blade, and it's locked in position unless you release it. That allows the blade to be exposed, and that's a safety feature. So you have to intentionally kick this forward to release the lock on the blade cover. And just bring that down and tape it, you're ready to go. Note that on the inside of this blade cover, there is a little foam pad, and that can be used by putting a little oil. It can be 30 weight, it can be sewing machine oil, whatever you want to put on there, and it just keeps the blade coated so that you don't end up with a lot of goop built up on the blade, or at least it's less likely to accumulate. One other feature here that has become, that is really nice, is that if you just press this spring latch in the back of your blade, it allows you to pull the blade out without having to use any tools. So there have been a lot of good improvements on the tape heads from the Loveshaw side for you. They've eliminated some of the vulnerable springs here on the tape head that were concaving the tape, and those springs would a lot of times pop off in production, and you wouldn't notice it, and it would cause the tape to not lay evenly on the box. Aside from that, the other things to look for on these tape heads when they get really worn is that the frame will sometimes come loose and start to work sideways. At that point, the tape head needs to be completely rebuilt or replaced. So, other than that, these are fairly maintenance-free tape heads. You might squirt them down with a little silicone or WD-40 to keep some of the moisture off of them, and you're ready to go back in business. The bottom tape head is the same as the top tape head, so they're interchangeable. On the frame of this machine, you'll note that this belt system is now easily serviceable. You can take the belts off without having to use a laced belt. It's a continuous belt. If you do need to replace belts, of course, they recommend that you replace both belts at one time so that they're evenly matched as far as the stretch on them. But we know that in the field, you do what you have to do to keep things going. Ideally, both belts are replaced at the same time. There's a tensioning knob here on the belt. That's all covered in your manual. And you're ready to go. Self-centering guides, I think you're used to that feature. Locks in position. A little bit about the counterweighted. This is a little different mechanism than you have on your machine. Actually, your machine is a much better design. But Loveshaw recommends perhaps a little food-grade silicone sprayed on this is all that you need, which allows this to move up and down freely. There are some Delron or HMW sliders in there that will become worn as time goes on. The Loveshaw manual states that ideally a 20 thousandths clearance for adjustment on that is what seems to work best for them. Other than that, that's a very long-lasting mechanism. You shouldn't have to deal with that for some time. With that, I think we've covered the major things that are going to cause problems on your boats and with the application of the tape. If you have any questions about this taper, you're always welcome to call our 1-800 number and contact myself. My direct phone number is 206-948-5766, or you can call the Loveshaw helpline. They're available and they know their stuff in regards to box tapers. They've been doing this for a lot of years, and they don't make tape. All they make are box tapers and formers. They're very helpful on the phone. One word about your manual. The manuals that came with these had 3 different tape heads in them. So be careful when you're looking at that you're ordering parts for the right tape head. And if you have any question, please call the Loveshaw folks, and they'll be happy to work through that problem with you by phone so that you get the right parts. Thanks very much for your patronage, and good fishing.